Taiwan's economy expanded nearly 13% in the second quarter, driven by AI demand and closer U.S. links that are reshaping supply chains across the region. This is Omni View, episode 130. Official data showed Taiwan's economy grew nearly 13% in the second quarter compared with a year earlier. The surge was tied to strong performance in artificial intelligence-related manufacturing and exports. The figures also reflect deeper supply chain integration with the United States. Nikkei Asia framed the result as evidence that U.S. technology partnerships are delivering measurable gains for Taiwan's export sector. The same reporting highlighted how AI-driven demand is increasing Taiwan's exposure to global chip cycles and geopolitical tensions over semiconductor supply. Other regional coverage has noted that the growth coincides with continued U.S. policy support for secure technology supply chains. The data come from government statistical agencies whose methods are reviewed by international bodies. Government releases indicate the expansion was concentrated in electronics and related components. Limited detail is yet available on performance in domestic services or agriculture. Interpretations differ on how sustainable the current pace remains if external demand softens. What happens next? Analysts will watch the third quarter numbers for signs of whether the electronics surge holds or narrows. Shifting now to a developing story in Ukraine. Ukrainian officials reported that Russian missile attacks on the capital killed at least 9 people. The strikes used ballistic missiles and hit residential areas. Rescue operations continued through the night. BBC reporting described the attack as part of an escalation in Moscow's use of long-range weapons against Ukrainian cities. Ukrainian authorities have stated the strikes targeted civilian infrastructure. Russian statements have claimed military objectives. International monitoring groups continue to document civilian casualties in both countries. The incident follows a pattern of repeated long-range strikes on the capital in recent weeks. Ukrainian air defense systems reported partial intercepts. Local emergency services have described damage to apartment buildings and ongoing searches for additional victims. Next, a policy change affecting hundreds of thousands of people in the United States. The U.S. government ended temporary protected status for approximately 350,000 Haitian and Syrian nationals. Families are now assessing limited legal pathways that rarely include return to their countries of origin. Local service organizations report increased demand for legal and housing assistance. The Christian Science Monitor has followed how community organizations in several U.S. states are helping families navigate work permits and court backlogs. Federal agencies have cited changed security conditions in Haiti and Syria as the basis for the decision. Advocacy groups have argued that many individuals still face documented risks if forced to leave. The policy change affects people who had been granted temporary status due to earlier instability. Many are now exploring asylum claims or other immigration routes. Service providers note that processing times for alternative legal options can extend for months or years. Meanwhile, in the Gulf region, Kuwait's army stated it destroyed hostile Iranian drones in its airspace. The drones were described as targeting several important sites. A government building and civilian property were hit, but no casualties were reported. France 24's live coverage placed the incident within a pattern of reported cross-border drone activity in the Gulf. Kuwaiti officials have emphasized that the response prevented further damage. Iranian authorities have not issued a public comment on the reported launch. The event occurred amid heightened regional tensions. Kuwait described the drones as hostile and aimed at infrastructure. No further details on the origin or type of the drones have been released by Kuwaiti sources. Turning to business results from Japan. Sony reported a 32% jump in quarterly profit and raised its full-year outlook. The company cited stronger sales in entertainment and electronics. The upgrade reflects performance through the first half of the fiscal year. Nikkei Asia linked the result to continued demand for gaming and imaging products. Company filings show the gains were concentrated in segments less exposed to recent component shortages. The profit increase occurred alongside higher revenue in entertainment divisions, including music and film. Sony's updated guidance incorporates expectations for steady consumer spending on its core hardware and content lines through the remainder of the year. In technology developments, Chinese AI firm DeepSeek made the beta version of its V4 models available. The release comes as several companies compete on lower pricing for advanced systems. Early users are testing performance against existing offerings. Nikkei Asia reported that the move adds pressure on larger developers to adjust pricing. Industry observers note the models are being evaluated for both capability and cost efficiency. The beta launch follows earlier releases from the same company. It coincides with broader market efforts to reduce costs for large-scale AI training and inference. Users have begun comparing output quality and speed with models from established providers. Now, some progress worth knowing about. Japanese trading house Itochu announced a $1.9 billion investment in Tokyo Century's aircraft leasing division. The deal expands capacity in a sector recovering from earlier pandemic losses. Completion is expected later this year. Nikkei Asia noted the transaction will increase the combined fleet and leasing portfolio. The investment occurs against a backdrop of steady demand for commercial aircraft financing. Tokyo Century's existing operations include a range of leased aircraft serving airlines worldwide. The capital injection is intended to support fleet modernization and additional acquisitions in the coming years. Now, to really understand this story, there's something most coverage leaves out. Most coverage of a 13% GDP jump treats the number as a simple snapshot of overall economic health. In reality, GDP is assembled from detailed sectoral data that can be heavily influenced by one or two export-oriented industries whose output is measured through customs records and company filings. When AI chip demand rises sharply, the value of those exports is recorded at current prices and added to the national accounts. This produces a large percentage increase even if other parts of the economy grow modestly. This same accounting method explains why earlier technology cycles produce similar spikes followed by reversals when external demand changed. Taiwan's statistical agency releases both headline figures and component breakdowns. These allow analysts to isolate the contribution of electronics manufacturing from services or agriculture. When you hear claims that the economy is booming, you can check whether the growth is concentrated in a narrow set of industries whose fortunes depend on global buyers. One concrete step is to look at the statistical agency's own sector breakdown tables. These tables are released alongside headline GDP and show exactly which categories drove the change. They also include year-over-year comparisons that reveal whether the surge reflects sustained trends or temporary price and volume effects. Historical data from previous semiconductor cycles show that such concentrated gains can reverse within 2 or 3 quarters if buyer orders shift. If you want to go deeper on Taiwan's growth figures, compare how Nikkei Asia and other regional outlets are covering the same data release. Tomorrow, watch for further updates on rescue efforts in Kiev and any official response from Iranian authorities regarding the drone incident. That wraps up today's Omni View. Remember, the best informed people read more than one perspective, and the calmest ones know that most days, somewhere, something is quietly getting better. For full source links, check out today's written briefing on the Omni View Summaries page. Share this with someone who values fair coverage. See you tomorrow, and if you'd rather watch than listen, find us on YouTube at Nara Network. Links in the show notes. Quick tip from the network, try environmental intelligence next. The Environment and Climate Policy Brief for Canada. Every Nara Network show is free at naranetwork.com. Want the written briefing with source links? Each show keeps a summaries page on naranetwork.com. Scannable, dated, and free. This episode used AI voice synthesis of my voice. Editorial selection and analysis are my own.